Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to this month's subscription box. This is a special month. We've got a ring that I've been wanting to do for a while, one that I'm very well known for. It's the Deep Space Black Ceramic Ring. Definitely a favorite of mine. So when you open up the box, I've got some extra mixing vials here. We try to always include enough vials to mix what you need in, just with all the pigments and glow powders that we include, and there's going to be a lot for this one. So I've got 4 right here, and we're doing them in glass right now, but we keep having issues with them breaking during shipping. So we're trying to do our best to protect them, but we might have to switch over to the plastic vials. Give us some feedback if you guys have a preference. I like the glass ones a little bit better. I think the powders kind of slide in it a little bit better, but they're kind of the same. I just think the glass is a little more premium, and I'm kind of sad to see them go. So let us know how important that is to you, and we'll see what we can do. Anyways, enough of that. Opening up the box here, we've got 4 different vials of color for this one. That is a lot. We usually only have 1, maybe 2. But you can see that here. We've got the black, that's kind of the base that we use for it. Blue, green, and purple. That gives it all of that kind of really interesting, cool color. And then the same glow vial will work for all of these. This is just a green glow powder. And then the additives that we'll put in the ring. These are important. These really help, I think, kind of tie the whole theme of it together. We've got malachite in this vial here. It's a nice, really bright green color. It's not going to get lost or anything in the design of it. It's super opaque, and so it's going to have a really just sharp contrasting color in there. We'll be careful not to go overboard with it though. And then here I've got amethyst, and this is great. It's super subtle, and it's fairly transparent, and so it gives the ring some depth. It makes it a little more interesting. It's fairly easy to work with, and then it's just got a really nice, subtle purple color that when you surround it with the kind of black base that we use, just gives it a really nice look. So I really love all the components here. And then of course the ring blank itself, let's not forget, I've just got a size 11. This will come in the size of your choice. This is just a black ceramic blank. These are awesome. They never scratch, they're super lightweight, they're durable, but they can be a little bit fragile, especially when machining them. So I'll go over some little pointers there. But it's pretty straightforward. And I've got a sticker in this one. We try to include stickers every once in a while, just in case you guys enjoy them. But yeah, I'll set this aside. We'll get into mixing these, getting it all ready here in a sec. I've got my safety equipment. I always make sure I have this on hand, especially like my dust mask. This keeps me from inhaling anything, because when we're grinding or sanding anything, you have a lot of dust up in the air. Even if it's not toxic, you don't want to be breathing it in. And then a face shield. Anytime you're spinning something on a lathe or a Dremel, anything like that, you have a huge risk of things flying off, hitting you. It's very important. I'm going to set these back here. But yeah, if you hear muffled audio at any point, it's just because I got a mask interfering with my face. And then obviously we've got our CA adhesives here. We are working on getting this available. It's just kind of tricky to supply in the quantities that we would need, and so we're working with a couple different manufacturers, trying to get available, trying to get a special formulation that is good for rings, one that's like UV resistant, and the viscosities, getting them just right, all of that. And so we're working on that. We'd love to hear some of your guys' feedback. And we've got an accelerator here as well. And a special note is this doesn't make it foam up, so you have to make sure you're using a quality accelerator that you can experiment with it, but if you spray it on just pure CA adhesive and it foams up, that's not what you want. That's going to ruin the clarity of your ring. But yeah, I'll set these aside for now, kind of out of the way. But yeah, let's get right into it. All right, let's get some powders mixed here. Got an empty vial. All of these are going to start with our base of green glow powder. Lighting's probably too bright in here for this to show off well, but try to get that. Yeah, there you go. Glowing nice and green. So obviously, because we're adding so many pigments, so much pigment to all of this, it's going to reduce the brightness of the glow, so that's always a drawback. That's okay. That's what uncolored glow rings are for. Okay, and we don't need much at all, especially if we're just doing this one ring. So I just put a teeny bit down in there. I'll do one of the colors for this. I'll do blue for this. We don't need too much of that. And I usually try to scoop it out, use tweezers, something like that. So let me grab something. Here's a pair of tweezers. Just really, like a flathead screwdriver, that'll do. Just some way for you to, like if you're just trying to pour it in and it all like kind of caves in at once, you're gonna get way too much. So you don't wanna do that. Just put a little in there, mix it up. I go over this every month, so I'll try to keep it pretty quick. You can fast forward if you want, if you already have seen all this. But I'll just go over this first blue one, probably maybe a second one, if I see there to be a reason to, probably not. But yeah, then we'll just skip to me having them mixed, and then we'll go from there. Just adding it piece by piece. I've got to the point where I can pretty much do it by eye. Before that, there was not enough pigment in there, so it was way too pale, not enough blue color. I don't think there's quite enough yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and do a color sample. In general, you wanna use as little pigment as possible. This vial, this is gonna last you forever. We send you one in each subscription box every month, but you really, you know, we send so much. But it's not too expensive, so we just try to, I don't know, load you guys up, make sure we're not skimping out on you. Oh, and I'm also wondering, if hopefully you guys are all watching right now, we're wondering about doing live streams for these. So if you've got any feedback for us on those, we'd love to hear it. I think it'd be a lot of fun to get questions live. That way, if there's certain steps that people are struggling with or have questions on, I can know right then, and I don't have to, you know, like I have no idea what any of you guys are struggling with right now. So that'd be super helpful for me and super helpful for you guys too. Anyways, I'll get to that later. But yeah, just let us know. Here's the color sample. That is a bright blue. I'm tempted to call that good. The kind of decision I've got going on is we're going to have a black backdrop for the ring. That's gonna be the base of the ring. And so these other colors, we're gonna keep them more subtle, and we really want them to pop. And so I think I'm gonna call this good. Generally, if I was doing a ring full blue, this is a little too bright for my taste at least. Of course, you can do it however you want. But for this one where we want that color to pop, I'm gonna go with it. And keep in mind that, like, here's green malachite. We're going to have green showing up really well in that. So the green, it doesn't really need that much help. But the blue, this is all the blue we're gonna get. And so just making sure that it pops, super important. So I've got this vial done. I'll go ahead and mix up the others and then check back in with you. All right, I've got all the colors mixed up. I wanna share my sample block here because I can kind of explain what I went through to get here. So basically the purple, I didn't add enough pigment to at first when I did my first test. So that's why we do our tests. This next color obviously is a much more vibrant, nice looking purple. And this is what we're left with. When you compare that to the pigment, it's not quite as dark of a purple, but once you add the, once you wet it with the CA adhesive, that really brings out the color. So that worked out nicely. And then the black, I go over this in a lot of months videos, but when you want it to be a nice dark black color, it does take quite a bit of pigment. And so I decided to add even more than I had here. And so there's quite a bit in there, and that significantly reduces the glow effect. That's okay. One thing that this ring is great for is the black color doesn't really glow much, but these other three, you've got those integrated in there, and so those help really make the glow pop regardless. So I'll show some of that here. Not showing super well just because it's so bright in here. I've got all my studio lights on, but I think you can already kind of see how this black over on the end here, that definitely is glowing significantly darker than the others. So yeah, there we go. I kind of want to show it off in the dark. Maybe I'll switch the light off here real quick. Sorry. Still have the main room lights on, but this should work. Let me crank up the ISO a little bit. Here we go. All right, here's just a good comparison. There we go. So yeah, you can see they give off a nice glow, especially if I guard it from the light. So this black over here, that's not doing too much in the way of glow. So these colors, these are going to be important in help making that glow pop. So we'll go over the strategy in that. You also want them to show up as a color, so it kind of goes hand in hand. You want the color to be there, and you also want the glow to be there. If you get one, you'll have the other. So not too complicated, not rocket science. And then no further prep needed to be done for these. The malachite, that's just ready to go. We're going to pick pieces the size that we want. The amethyst here, for this, I want as dark purple gemstones as I can get. I really like having a subtle purple hue to it. And so if I go for the more clear pieces, then that's not really going to show up too well. So it'll still show up, it'll still give it depth. You'll still be able to notice the subtle effect that it gives it. But I like using the darker colors. I'm going to set everything else aside, still have plenty of pigments here. Still have a lot of glow powder even. And we've got a ring blank over here. I'm going to switch over to the lathe and we'll go ahead and start inlaying it. All right, let's go ahead and get our mandrel put into the lathe and then mount the ring to it. So to do that, I think the medium mandrel should work on this one. We also need to go over using electric tape on the mandrel because this is a ceramic one. It's a little bit loose here. We're gonna add electric tape so it'll make it a little bit bigger, but I think we're gonna have to go with the biggest mandrel for this one. I believe this is a size 11. Maybe 11 and a half. Yeah, that should work. So what we need to do, because this is ceramic, it's a little bit fragile, especially on like the hardened steel we're using here. So you got to be careful with it. And so I like to use electric tape to pad the whole thing. So what I do is I just get my roll going, and then I just coat the whole mandrel in at least one layer. That's about 2 around the whole thing, around this end here. And that should, yeah, this is a nice fit now. And this padding should protect the ring. There's still a slight risk, so you do have to be careful. But this should work. Now I just need to use Allen wrench. I need to get myself some Allen keys specifically for this. We include it when you buy the mandrels. We've got a box in the shop. I just haven't got one yet. There we go. That's nicely centered. I'll zoom in on it. You can get a better look. It's got a slight wobble to it, but I'm not even going to worry about that on these rings where we're not doing any machining on the lathe. Not really a big concern. You just want it to be as close as possible. So you can see that. Pretty good. I'll go ahead and we'll call that good. I don't want to over tighten it. Again, I don't want it to crack. So if this comes loose or slides or anything like that, no big deal. I can just turn the lathe off, tighten it back up. We should be good to go. So just be careful with it. Should go just fine, just like that. Now let's go ahead and start inlaying it. All right, I'm ready to go. I've got my amethyst and malachite here. I'm just gonna be selecting some of my favorite pieces from that. I'm gonna grab a piece. Sometimes you grab a piece and you put it up to the ring and it's just like monstrously large. It's kind of hard to scale or to judge the scale of it right away. So I like to size it up, kind of know what I'm working with. This piece, malachite, is brittle enough that I think I can just snap this in half and turn it into 2 good pieces. There we go. One good piece, one bad piece. Put that away. It was just a little long before. Right there, that's a really nice placement. The malachite, you don't want to be too big in the deep space ring. Again, you want the main background color of it to be that black color, so don't go too overboard with color. Of course, you can do it however you want. I think it could look really cool if you just crammed the whole thing full of a lot of malachite, a lot of amethyst, so just do whatever makes you happy. I'm going to put that in the middle. A lot of the time the glue as well as the inlay pieces will suck itself to one side or to the other. And you kind of want to avoid that because you don't want all your pieces on the edges. So avoid it when you can, and it'll naturally end up happening some of the time, and that's fine. And to hold it in place, I could either harden this with accelerator right now to hold that in place, or just dump a little bit of our base glow powder. The reason I'm not using accelerator is because then the ring has accelerator on it. I need to use a heat gun to get rid of it, or I need to wait for it to evaporate. I'm trying to do this quickly, so don't want to wait that long. I'm just going to use that to hold it in place. And if you're not careful, you can also make clear spots in the ring. If you've got a big glob of glue and you harden it, you have a clear spot that doesn't look good. So that's just another reason. Anyways, I'll go ahead and inlay some malachite all the way around the circumference of this. I'll do it I'll keep it a little bit sparse because we're going to be adding green color with our glow color as well. And so just doing a couple of flakes here and there, that way we can get a really nice bright green pop. After I'm done with that, I'm going to go through and I'm going to do the same thing with the amethyst. And I'm going to be picking the darker, more vibrant purple pieces for it. But just same thing, just going in, filling it in where I can, keeping it pretty sparse, making sure that I have pieces sticking up above the surface of the edges of the ceramic here. And then just making sure that it's, I don't know, not too much, not too little, all of that. So you'll see the way that I do all the spacing, all of that, and I'll go over it when I'm done here before I start doing the colors. That way, if you're still just a little inexperienced with this and you want help on the spacing of it, I can offer my best advice. All right, so I've got the whole thing inlaid all the way around with all of the inlay materials, so the malachite and the amethyst. Haven't done the glow powders themselves yet, but I told you I'd check in with you. And let me crank up the ISO on my camera here. This is gonna look bad and not realistic, but it'll help me kind of get my point across. We're working with a lot of dark materials here, so it's kind of tricky to see everything. So essentially, I'll just walk you through everything I did. Malachite, I was pretty sparse with it. I can go down and count it. Here's 1, see 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces total that I put in here. And when you're inlaying it, you don't want to space them super evenly. I go over this in a lot of my videos, but it kind of just like throws off the effect if you look at the ring and it's just like super patterned all the way around. You want it to look natural. And so just try to keep it randomized as much as you can. I've got pieces of malachite on the left, I've got them on the right, I've got them in the middle. These two are really close together, these two are really far apart. These two are extra far apart, these ones are just kind of medium spacing. Even now though, I'm kind of like, you can see, pretty even in terms of spacing on some of them. So this is kind of like my one redeeming piece here, but you do want to be careful. You don't want it to look super patterned or anything like that. And then for the amethyst is a little bit more forgiving because it blends in really well. So you can kind of just do it however you want, but I did try to keep it kind of randomized and separate. So what I was doing, in amethyst, when you break it up, it kind of flakes up into smaller, kind of like shard chunks, not as like round of a piece. And so I used a few here. I stacked a bunch of them on top of each other, and in the end it gives it I think an even cooler result where you have the kind of fragmented look to it. But I stacked a couple of pieces here, a couple of pieces here, just essentially tried to pack in as much as I could while still leaving room later for all of the other glow colors, because that's really important. We still have a lot to do with those. So I just packed in as much of that as I could, but you can see we've got a really nice distribution, and we should be ready to go. I made sure to glue them all in place. They should be secure. We don't want any of the pieces falling out or chipping out. The best way to avoid that is you want to have the majority of the stone underneath the surface of the edge of the ceramic or whatever ring blank you're working with. That way it's got a really good anchor down in there. So That'll hold the pieces in place. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the adding of the pigments, the pigmented glow powders. Sorry, I got my tongue tied here. So I've got the black, this is our base color, like I said, and then our 3 other colors here. And let's just get right into this. It's fairly straightforward. It does take quite a bit of practice. This is one of our more advanced rings. All of my ring makers for all of the Patrick Adair Designs rings we sell, this is one of the final rings that they have to master before they're kind of let loose to create rings for our orders for actual customers. So it's quite technical. There's a lot of different skills to go over. So I didn't want to do this one right away after we announce the subscription box. So if this is your first one, just do your best. You're gonna have to get some experience, but you can get it to turn out really nice the first time if you're just careful and follow all these steps. So don't be discouraged. And you can always try again. You should have plenty more materials to do almost a whole nother ring probably. You just need another ring blank. So I'm just going through and I'm laying down an initial really thin layer of our black pigment. That's going to give us a base coat, something to build off of, a background. That way there's no chance that you'll see through all of the glue down to the base of the ring, because that just kind of ruins the effect. Okay, there we go. I blew all of the excess off. Let me zoom in here. Blew off all the excess, so there's just a little bit of extra powder on here. You can see I can blow that and it's stuck to it. So there's a kind of a dry layer on the surface here, but it's on the back end of it, it is attached with the glue. So just a minimal amount stuck on there. We still have plenty of room left in the channel. Now I'm going to go over to my colors. So I'm going to start with blue, go to green, then to purple. It doesn't matter what order you do it in. That's just the order I had it in my hand. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick a few spots to do blue throughout the ring. I'm just gonna dab a dot of glue where I want to do that, just randomized. And now I'll go around, and the trickiest part of the technique is you want to have the blue show up. You want it to be visible in the ring, but you don't want it to cover all of the colors underneath it. And so you gotta kind of be sparse. You wanna have just a little tiny, you can see right here, I've got like a couple little patches where there's some really solid bright blue going on there, but I'm not covering up the majority of the black underneath. And that's gonna be the theme all throughout, and I'll hit that point multiple times. So if it's a little unclear right now, hopefully it'll start making sense as we go throughout it. So essentially we're just trying to, you don't want it to be like gloppy, you want it to blend, you want all the colors to interact with each other and kind of cross over. And so you can do a couple of, I'm holding the vial up high, doing a more general dusting of it. So there's just a little bit of color, but now I'm gonna bring it in and get 1 or 2 patches that we know will show up if they're exposed on the ring. And that's something that's tricky, is we're gonna cover up most of this when we do subsequent layers. And so the way I like to do it is, well, the way to look at it is, as we build this up, we don't really know what's going to be exposed. So what I like to do is I like to do 3 layers or so repeating. That way, no matter where we sand into this ring, we've always got an interesting color palette going on anywhere in there. So that's the strategy. Because if it looks really nice on the outside, then you grind it down and it's just black underneath. Obviously, it's not going to matter. All that hard work was for nothing. So just make sure to layer it well. Do really thin layers. Get a lot of color in every one of the layers, but never too overpowering. You want the majority of it to be black still. Now I'm going to do green. I'm just going to go through and pick a few spots that we didn't get any blue on. And I'm generally a little less I do a little less green because we've got the malachite in there, like I said. So we already know we're gonna have green color showing up. We don't need to worry about it too much. Dusting it a little bit. You can see right there, there's just the slightest amount of green going on here. Most of this probably won't even be visible in the final ring. That's why we just keep doing our layers, build it up, and hopefully when we grind it down and we sand into it, we'll have just a beautiful mix of colors, really subtle in some places, really blatant in others. Okay, there we go. It's starting to take form pretty well. Now we'll move on to purple. Same exact thing. I'm gonna go through, put a dot of glue everywhere I see fit. Usually the first places to fill up, the places that go above the rim, are where you have an inlay piece. So right here I've got this malachite, and we're already really close to the brim there, so just be aware of that. You don't want to build up too much black there because you're going to have this weird black halo around all your inlay pieces that it's an effect you can do on purpose if you want, but for the most part it's not desired. I'm going to do a really general blending. When you do that, when you dump the vial from a little bit up higher, all three of the colors can kind of combine and interact a lot better. It's not just a patch of blue, patch of green, patch of purple. They're all blending together, they're all mixing. That's an effect that's kind of critical to the look of this ring. It's just meant to look like space, lots of swirling colors, galaxies, all that. Okay, I think that's good for the purple. Here's a spot that looks in need. There we go. Now when I rotate this around, again, I've still got it a little bit overexposed. Let me drop it down. That's a little more realistic. So you can see the patches of color. This is a good point to talk about what I was trying to refer to earlier. You can see we've got blue, sorry, I'm having trouble here. Blue right here, blue right here, two little patches, and then we've got green in the middle of that, and then purple on this edge down here. And I sprinkled it so that they all kind of crossed over, blended a little bit. And then there's that piece of malachite in there, but there's still a good amount of black. Purple here, this is kind of a heavy chunk here, but I do know that I can cover the majority of this up. This is kind of a little bit much, in my opinion. But yeah, like I said, most of that's gonna get kind of blended in. Just all the way around, take a really good look. Right here, this is still just like bare black pigment. So that's just kind of the look you wanna go for. Just dotting it all over the place, have a little bit of a sprinkling everywhere, but nothing too major. Now what we need to do is we need to do a second layer of black. And so the goal here is to raise the level of the inlay so that we can get closer to having it to the surface of the ring. But we don't want to completely cover up all of that good color work we just did. And that's okay, that's why we're going to do multiple layers of it if you do cover it up. But I'm essentially just going to just put glue literally everywhere, but I'm not going to just dump the black on there because I want to make sure to leave some places available. And I'm going to do a lot of, here's something you can do. This isn't necessarily the best way to do it, but what I'm going to do, here, let me turn up the brightness just a little bit. I'm going to come up a little bit higher. Here, let me zoom out better. And I'm going to sprinkle it from up high. This will add pigment to it. This will kind of tone down the super over the top bright parts that show off in the in the color, the bright colors. Sorry, I'm trying to think and talk and inlay at the same time. There we go. So that really toned it down, just that quick layer I did. That covered up a lot of the color. We still have a little bit of it showing through. Now I'm going to go in and raise some spots up. We want to get close to the point where, because we don't want to be doing this all day. We got to fill it in a little bit better. Here's a really low spot. Zones of blue all around, and then you could see I did a little bit of general, just a little up higher, just sprinkling it. That way there's just the slightest just kind of hint of almost like a glimmer of blue in the pockets of the black and other colors. That way they all interact better, look better together. Now I'll go in and do the green. Same exact thing. I'm looking for spots that are really dark, spots that look like they could use some color. Being really careful not to go overboard. It's so easy to do that. One thing you want to kind of do is build little mounds. Build a mound so that it extends above the surface of the ring. That way when you cover it up next time, it'll disappear, but when you grind into it, some of it will be exposed. There we go. I think that's all the green I need. Not as much green needed because we've got the malachite again. Now I'm going to do a very gentle sprinkling. Okay, now the purple. I think this is going to be the final color layer that I need to do. So this is my last chance to get the purple to show up. I'm going to make sure that's definitely going to show up right here at this. It's really hard to see on camera. I'll bring it back here so you can see the surface. See that little mound, how it extends above the surface where my fingernail's touching here? That means that's going to show up, as long as I don't blow it away, I guess. So I'm going to put a dab of glue, just kind of solidify this in place. There we go. That looks great. The purple's touching right up against the green there. That looks really nice. I'm going to kind of blend it with some light dusting there. I got a little piece of purple on top of the green, kind of an island of it. Just kind of helps it blend better. There's a nice purple area. There's already some here. I'm going to raise it up just a teeny bit, just for some added assurance that that's going to show up in the final thing. Ooh, that looks really good. The glue gets on there, that really brings out the shine. All right, that's the purple inlaid. Let's go ahead and get a really good look at the ring. That's looking great. There's a little bit too much color right now. So that's what we're going to address. Other than that, I think that's where we want it. We've almost got it to the surface everywhere. So I'm not going to do another layer. That's just going to be mostly a waste of time. What we can do is we can cover it in an extra thick layer of glue that will be clear later. And I guess that just gives it like a protective layer. You're able to see down into the color, but you don't have to color it up with, or cover it up with anything like this black here. So, but now I do want to add some black. So what I'm going to do is, this is super thin super glue, ultra thin. And I'm going to do a really thin layer. You can use just a regular old CA glue, but this makes it a little bit easier if you've got access to it. Just a really thin layer all over. Now I'm using my black powder. And then I'm just gonna go through, dump it on any of the places that are a little too over the top. Like right there, that blue's standing out just a little too much. There's a lot of color here. I'm just gonna sprinkle it really lightly. Not trying to cover it up, I'm just trying to make it a little more subtle. So just get a little sprinkle of it on there. There we go, I think that's good. That's kind of the look we're gonna go for. Once we grind into this, I think it's gonna look really cool. Now I'll hit it with some accelerator, turn on the lathe. There we go. Now for the most part, we have it up to the surface of the ring. Right here, this whole section here, that is beyond the surface of the ceramic, but there's a little divot right here where it goes down. What I could do is I could fill that in with black and then maybe add a little bit of color to it. But what I'm going to do, it's kind of a shortcut. It kind of affects the look of it, but I really do like the look it gives you. It gives it some depth. And so you can pick and choose however you want to do it. If you notice that there's not a lot of purple in your ring, maybe you can go and add some extra purple there, for example. So just whatever you want to do, but I'm going to go ahead and just dab my regular viscosity glue right along here. I'm going to hit it with that accelerator, hold it in place so it doesn't go running everywhere. Over here, there's a low spot. Fill that in nicely. Spray it. Just continue. Should be done in a sec. There's a really low spot. Fill that in. All right, there we go. It's been quite a while. Sorry that I took so long. This is just such a intricate ring that I wanted to be very detailed, give you guys all of the instruction that you need. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or just email us. We'll try to get back to you. But there we go. We're ready to start grinding away at this thing. I'm gonna give it about 5 minutes to rest, make sure that the glue has a chance to harden all the way through. Then I'm going to come back with the Dremel and we'll just attack this thing. We'll sand it until it's flush, and then once we've got it flush, we'll check for any pockets, voids, anything like that. We'll patch them if we need to, and then once we have that all ready to go, we'll just do some of the sanding steps and get it polished up, and we should be done here pretty quick. All right, so I've given a little bit. Now I've got my Dremel here. Let me turn on autofocus. Got a really rough sanding bit here. Then I've got plenty of extras ready to go once I wear through this. So now, this is a very standard sanding procedure when it comes to all the glow rings, all the videos that I've done in the past, so I won't go into much detail. Essentially, you just want to hit any of the high points, any of the hard points, anything that's sticking up too much, you kind of want to get it all even. And then once you have it a little more even, then you can do some general sanding with the lathe on, and that'll kind of bring the outer diameter down. You want to keep going until you get it flush. And at that point, you'll stop. You won't want to be too hard on the ceramic. You don't want to scratch it. It's difficult, but if you do scratch it, it's very hard to remove the scratches. So you want to be gentle once you get it flush, and then we'll move on to some of the sanding steps. All right, I've got everything flush here. I don't have any extra glue or glow powder or anything hanging over the edges. There's a teeny bit here. You can see that. That'll come off with the 220 grit sandpaper I'll use. I could touch it up real quick, but there were, before this, much bigger pieces that I was able to get at by hand, just using the Dremel. And you can see we just got it flush everywhere. I did not find a single major void or anything that looked like it needed any further attention. So at this point, I can just move on to the sandpaper, and I've got a stack here. I've cut out a piece. I've just got multiple different grits of paper here. So we'll go through all the different grits. I like to start at about 200 grit and work my way up to at least 1,000, maybe even like 1,500 or 2,000. Then after that, we'll do the polishing steps on the buffing wheel. And I guess I'll say, if you do have any voids you want to patch up, the easiest way, the way that I like to usually do it, is I would, for this ring where we've got black as our base color, I'd take black, and then if you have a little void, I'd dump a little bit right on top of the ring, or right on top of the void, and try to just like smush it in place. Make sure to get it in that pocket. Just repeat this step until you get it how you want, and then just put a dab of glue over the top of it. That'll seep into it and make it strong, hold together well, all of that. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. If you need to patch it, just get creative, patch it, make it look good. Now from here, we just need to sand it, and we should have ourselves a really nice looking ring. All right, I've got all the sanding done. I'll mention before we move on, and I mention this in almost every video, but when you're on your roughest grit of sandpaper, that's where it's most important to spend the most time. So you'll notice I spent a really long time on that, and that's where you can get rid of the really deep grooves that were left by the Dremel. So that's really important. If you go through and you notice some scratches at the end, like where we're at here, you're gonna have to go back to the beginning and really try to get those out with that roughest grit. And so just spend your time there, that way you don't have to start over. But this looks really good. It's got a really nice finish. Not noticing any grooves or anything that needs to be addressed. So yeah, we're ready to polish this thing up. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off here. Kind of inspect it real quick. That's looking great. We were able to get those colors to show up really nicely. Let's go ahead and switch over to the buffing wheel. One thing I'll mention actually is if you don't have a buffing wheel, you can still you can put polish on a paper towel like this and have the lathe on. You want to be really careful, but just the same techniques you'd use if you were sanding it, do that, and then you can polish it there. It doesn't do as good of a job, so that's why I don't do it. But if you don't have a buffing wheel, you can save, like those are at least 60 bucks. So you can save some money and get away with that one, especially if you're just getting started. Anyways, let's get over to the buffing wheel. All right, I'm ready to polish. This step is really easy. Just be very careful not to overheat the ring. On the left here, I've got a white polish. That's a good medium grit. Get a bit on the wheel. I've got the ring. I'm just gonna go over the whole thing, gonna rotate it quickly as I do it, and I'm not gonna leave it in one spot for too long. It is pretty easy, surprisingly easy, to overheat it, and you do not want to do that because I'll mess up your finish. So just light, gentle, quick touches, then I rotate it quickly, go back at it. I'm gonna go around the entire circumference of the ring probably 3 or 4 times. Again, just like on the sanding, how you want to spend the most time on the lowest grit, same thing here. This is your chance to get rid of any minor imperfections, smooth it all out. The next step, that's just going to be to bring the shine out better. It's not really going to correct much. Okay, that side's good. Moving over here. Add a little green polish, that's the fine polish. Same exact technique, just light, gentle touches. Rotate the ring all the way around. I'm gonna go around at least twice, maybe 3 times. All right, there we go. This turned out awesome. I'm gonna go clean this up before I show it off. But that is looking really good. I'm really impressed with this one. All right, it's inspection time for the ring. This is one of the most important parts of the video. This is where we get really up close. This is where I talk about everything I said and how it plays into the final look of the ring. So this is one of my favorite parts. I've got a really bright, really harsh light shining right at this, so any imperfections, those are gonna be highlighted really well. You can see here that here are those 2 pieces of malachite. Those showed up, they showed up really nicely. A really bright, just bright green flare to the ring. I really like that. Over here, this is some amethyst. You get this kind of like ghosty, frosty look to them. Really like that. See that? Just like really dark, has some depth, it's a little bit see-through. Really love those additions of the amethyst. There's a piece of malachite. You could see if there's a bunch of pieces like this all over, it could get over the top really quick, but we kept it subtle. I really like the look of it. And there's even a piece of amethyst right next to that. Looks really nice. There's a little cluster of a couple amethyst pieces. Overall, really like the way the inlay materials worked out. Right here, here's some spots. This usually, if you have like an air pocket that gets dust in it and then you seal it, like that's where those imperfections can come from. They're also just kind of like mysterious, really, I don't know, kind of tricky to avoid, but what I could do is I could sand over this, sand it and then fill it over or cover it with some more powder, go back over it. But remember, this is macro, this is much larger than life. This is not even really noticeable in the actual ring. So I won't really worry about that. Let's look at some of the colors. Let's see if I can find a good spot. Here's a good spot. You can see right there, that little kind of green patch. There's just barely any of it, but it's really cool. It's got like just a little bit of color, really subtle. Then we've got 3 different purple patches with that blue one. I think we've got some nice, I don't know, just interaction of the colors going on there. And then the base of it is black. One thing that's good, that's good to check is to make sure that you've still got plenty of black left over. If you're not careful, you can end up with a ring that's mostly color and the look is just completely wrong, so you don't want to do that. Here's a great example of how you've got a little bit of color, a little bit of blue, a little bit of purple, but mostly black. So you've got a dark general look to it, and even some green up here and some malachite. So I just love like this patch in particular, really good looking. Right here, there's just kind of a little bit of green all over where I sprinkled it. I think that looks really nice. Well, if I catch the ceramic just right, see here, you can see just some lines going this way. That's fairly unavoidable. Again, in the real world, this is not even noticeable. You can use diamond polish to help get rid of those, but this is seriously fine. It can be so much worse. And this is just at the right angle. You can see they just disappear if I hold it off at all. So I'm just trying to nitpick anything I can see. Pretty much just, I think we kind of, everything I wanted to talk to you guys about, I talked about. And so if you can pause and take a look at this ring at this point, or just whatever, you can see how it all plays into the final look of it. So yeah, I hope you guys all learned something. If you have any questions, please do let us know. I'll stop rambling. I know this one's gonna be a little extra long, but that's okay. I'm trying to be extra helpful in this one. Maybe you can watch it at 2 times speed, or just skip through the stuff that you are already familiar with. But yeah, Guys, thank you so much for watching. Oh, also one thing before I go, I was wondering about maybe creating a Facebook group where we could all join. We're starting to get a lot more subscribers now. We're like 40, maybe even 50 subscribers now. And so there's a big community of you guys out there. And I think if you could connect, that would be great. We could all interact. I could reply to you guys, have some of my employees join in on it. And you guys could just bounce ideas off each other. I think that'd be really cool. So if you got any feedback, do let us know. We love hearing from you guys. You guys are some of our best fans. We love you guys. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy some pictures of the ring and have a nice day. Guys, one final note, we forgot to look at the glow. I know I've been talking on and on, so I'm sorry I keep making this so long, but let me hit this with a UV light, charge up the glow. Let's check that out. It's gonna dim over the next couple of seconds. Notice how there's some bright spots and some less bright spots. The less bright spots, that's where we've got the black glow powder. That's where we had to use so much pigment that it doesn't glow as bright. So you can see those bright spots, they really stand out. It gives it a really kind of cool, unique look where there's some bright spots, some less bright spots. So it looks really cool on the finger. And more importantly, we've got some spots that really do glow pretty well. And so that's just another added benefit to the design of this ring. It's got spots that have some good glow to it, even though the majority of it is a darker black color. So yeah guys, that's my final note. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.